What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It's your boy Goblin, and today we're coming in with a banger of a video. Hope you guys enjoy this one. Drop a like if you do. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and also head over to my Twitter today as we are doing a giveaway on 2 free only gas grinders. All you got to do is go over to my Twitter, drop a retweet and a follow, and tag a homie, and you're entered to win a free grinder. If you live in the California area, specifically LA, I might even come deliver it to you because I'm picking the winner while I'm out in LA. So chances are, if you live out there and you win, I might pull up if you're down for that. So make sure you head over to my Twitter and enter the giveaway. It ends on September 21st, so you got plenty of time from now. Also, real quick before we dive into the video, let's take a moment to talk about our friends at MyBookie. This video is brought to you guys by MyBookie. With the NFL season just getting started, there's never been a better time to head over to MyBookie and get started on your winning season. Whether you're a veteran bettor or a first-timer, MyBookie gets you the most for your money with the double deposit bonus. It's quick and easy. A $250 deposit puts $500 in your account, and you can use the funds to bet instantly on as many games, contests, and props as you want. To claim your bonus, head over to MyBookie today and sign up using code GOBLIN. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. Big shout out to MyBookie. Now let's dive into the video. Now in today's video, we're coming in with a story that's not very fun. Today we're talking about the time that I bought some Molly on the deep web and it turned out to actually be meth. The reason I'm sharing this story is because I think it's important to talk about things like this. This happens a lot more often than you might think, you know? And when I was younger, I always thought that I would never get anything cut. I was always like, oh, I know what to look for. My plugs are good. That was just me being ignorant. And this video here is a good example of a situation where you might get shit from someone that seems trusted and it's bullshit. So, hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let's dive right into it. Now, this happened fairly recently, early 2021, very early 2021. I mean, this was right around my birthday, and my birthday is January 2nd, so I'm talking the very beginning of the year. And at this point, I was already pretty well into a fairly intense drug binge. I was every day doing either coke, ketamine, Xanax, a whole wide variety of things. Pretty much whatever I woke up and felt like doing, I would either take it or find a way to get it and then take it. So I was kind of resorting to the deep web at this point. I had moved to a new area that I didn't really know anyone in. I was living more so in central Illinois, whereas I had always grown up in the suburbs of Chicago. So I didn't really know anyone in this area, and the people that I did know that I had met and tried to grab things from, it ended up usually being absolutely awful quality. Whether it was coke, I tried to get some of that. I was offered Xanax a couple times locally, but I was never really able to find a decent plug in my area, so I had to resort to going on the deep web. Now, the deep web and the whole darknet culture nowadays is very different than it was when I was younger and using it a lot more actively. I remember back in like 2016, 2017, you could just hop on Alphabet or Hansa, no worries, place an order and get some stuff. But nowadays, a lot of these vendors have either A, been arrested, B, quit, or the markets that they sold on quit, or they got bopped too. I mean, it is crazy out there now. Every couple weeks, it seems like there's a new market either getting busted, or you hear about some vendor that got busted, or a market just exit scams and shuts down. So at this point, I didn't really have one specific market that I stuck to because I didn't know what was reputable, you know? It's hard to trust things on the deep web nowadays, and it's kind of why I stopped using it after this binge, you know? I mean, even back when I was younger, I would sometimes use it still to grab weed or stuff that wasn't as hard of a drug, but I stopped using it altogether after this particular drug binge of mine because I kind of realized, like, hey, this shit is very sketchy, you know? There's nothing reputable about any of this. So on this particular day, I hopped on a market called Darkode. Now, Darkode is one that I don't think is around anymore. As far as I'm aware, I think they exit scammed, but back at this point, they were still around. They were actually fairly recent. Darkode was originally something that was around way back in the day, but it wasn't really like a full-on market. They got shut down and then came back as a market, but no one really knows if it was like the original founders or who was behind it, because they didn't get arrested. They just took everyone's money and fucking dipped. But at this point, point, they hadn't done that yet, and there was a lot of vendors on their market. So I hopped on and I decided to look for some Molly. It wasn't as much for me as it was for my homies. You know, I had some homies who had mentioned that they wanted to take some. They were coming down to visit me all the way down in central Illinois, so I was like, yeah, you know, I got you guys. I'll see what I can find. I hopped on Darkode and I'm scrolling around and I find a fairly reputable appearing vendor. Now, the issue with vendor reputations on darknet markets is that 90% of them are not real. It's very easy to fake a reputation on a darknet market, but I didn't really consider that at this point. You know, I was kind of out of the loop. I hadn't really been buying anything on the deep web for a long time at this point, and I was just starting to get back into it. So all of my previous practices and etiquette and knowledge about it just went out the window because I was fiending. So I ended up deciding to grab myself a nice little 8th of Molly. Nothing crazy. It wasn't too expensive. I think it was like $100-something bucks. You know, it wasn't anything insane. Pretty good price for the quantity I was getting as well. I know over there in Europe, you guys living over there, you guys get it a lot cheaper. But here in the US, a gram of Molly, if you get it from like a street plug, not the dark web, I mean, you could be looking at $80 for that shit, and no one would really question it. You know, it's pretty normal. The typical rate, at least, is $20 for a 0.2. So, I mean, when you go up to a gram, you might get a little bit of a discount on that 20 per 0.2, but at the end of the day, it's still a lot more expensive than it is in most other parts of the world. So I placed my order and I didn't really think much more of it. You know, I hopped off Darkode, I went back to chilling, vibing, minding my own business, and, you know, a couple of days passed, I'd say maybe a week, and finally my package showed up. Now, this was completely normal appearing. Nothing seemed off to me. You know, the packaging was right. The stealth was on point. It seemed pretty normal. I had ordered Molly before a long time ago from the dark web, and it came similarly packaged, so I didn't really have any complaints. Everything seemed normal. I pulled it out of the bag, and at first I didn't notice anything, right? There was, inside of the Mylar, there was just this little plastic baggie that had my 8th in there. I didn't actually even scale it, so I don't know if it actually was an 8th, because I never needed to scale it. You see, once I pulled it out of the bag, I kind of just let it sit on my desk for a little while. I wasn't planning on taking any immediately, and my friends weren't coming to kick it with me for another couple days, so I just kind of placed it on my desk and forgot about it for a couple days until the following week. It had just started. It was like a Monday or Tuesday. I remember it was right after the weekend. And my friends were finally driving down to visit me. It was about a 2.5-hour road trip. So I told them, I was like, yo, I got the Molly. I got all the goodies. I got some drinks. We got weed. All you guys got to do is pull up. You can spend the night. We got plenty of room. We're good to go, right? I got an extra bedroom. Everything's ready to go. We're chilling, right? So they tell me, they're like, bet, you know, we'll come tomorrow night, probably around like 7 or 8 p.m. Now, at this point, thankfully, I was smart enough to have started testing my drugs. Anything I bought from the deep web, I would test with a Marquis test. And prior to this binge, I never tested shit, if I'm being honest. I was an idiot. But, you know, I kind of realized as I got older that if I was going to continue doing drugs, I needed to be safe. I needed to start testing stuff. When I was younger, at least, you know, I didn't really know anyone who had gotten bad stuff or who had gone to the hospital or overdosed and died from bullshit. But as I'd gotten older, I started hearing about more and more people I knew who either ended up in the hospital, ended up dead. I know quite a few people who have overdosed on some bullshit. And as I got older, it scared me, you know? So I started being more responsible and testing my stuff, which, listen, all of you should be doing. A Marquis test is very cheap. They are not one-time use things, right? Invest in it. It's the single smartest thing you can purchase if you are a drug user. And this specific instance is exactly why, even to this day, I still have a Marquis test on me. All I do is take shrooms and smoke weed now, and I still keep one on me, just because you never know. You never know when someone's going to bring something over, and it might look a little off. And that's exactly what happened on this day. You see, I sat down, I finally pulled out the bag of Molly and decided to check it out a little bit. I had left it at my desk, you know, a couple days prior, so I sat at my desk in front of my computer and was just checking out the bag that I'd gotten, that I'd kind of been ignoring. Now, I was looking at it, and right off the bat, it just seemed off to me. There was still crystals, yeah, but I mean, it didn't look right. It was a little bit too much powder in the bag. I wouldn't say powder, but the crystals were really crushed up, and on top of that, the color was completely off. That's what really made me a bit worried about this. You see, normally when I've gotten Molly, I've gotten it in a few different forms. Most of the time, it's got a yellow tint to it. Sometimes it looks a little more gold than yellow, and then I've also had some brown sugar Molly, right, where it looks a little more brown than it does yellow, but it's still kind of got that yellow tint, that yellow hue to it, even when it's that brown sugar, right? I've even seen Molly that was purple before, right? But I have never in my life seen Molly that looked like this. It wasn't quite clear. It wasn't quite white. It had the very, very slightest yellow tint to it. So slight. I mean, you couldn't really tell it was yellow until you put a light on it, right? Once you put a light on it, you could see, okay, there's a little bit of a yellow tint to it. But, you know, looking at it, it just looked way off. It looked wrong. I had never in my life seen a bag of Molly that looked like this. So I decided, you know what? We're testing this shit. So I had a bunch of these tiny little tubes, and all I would do with them is just drop whatever I was testing in there and then squirt a little bit of the Marquis test on it. Now, one time when I was testing some ketamine, I fucked up and accidentally dripped a little bit on my lap and burned a hole through my pants and into my leg. That's because I was already K-holed, borderline K-holed, while I was trying to test it. So I didn't quite do that the right way. I did the K and then got fucked up and was like, yo, let's test it, bro. I don't know why I did that, but back on topic here. So I drop a little bit of this quote-unquote Molly into the tube, and then I drop a little tiny drop of this Marquis test on top of it. Now, for those of you who don't know what a Marquis test is actually made of, it is an acid. It is not like some liquid that's harmless. You cannot let it come in contact with your skin. You have to be very careful with storing this stuff and using it. And make sure you don't use it when you're fucked up, because when you drip it on your skin, trust me, that shit is not pleasant. That took a long time to heal. In fact, I still have a mark on my leg from that. I just looked down. Yeah, it's still there. This was like a long time ago that I burned a hole in my leg. It is still there. But either way, back on topic. So I test this shit, and I let it sit, and within seconds, it was already off. Now, I didn't know any of the color results by heart at this point, but luckily the kit that I'd bought came with a little paper that told me all of the different results and what the colors meant. So I'm looking through, and I'm looking inside of my tube, and inside of the tube, it's turning a little bit brown. Not like super deep brown, it's more like a light brown, almost like a dying leaf, you know? It's hard to describe. It was a weird shade of brown, but it wasn't very deep. But either way, it was kind of brownish. Not all the way brown, but, you know, more of like a fall color, like an orange mixed with brown kind of color. So I'm looking through my Marquis test, my color list, and, you know, my chart to see what this means, and I realized pretty quickly that this is either meth or amphetamine, which, unfortunately, on a Marquis test, come up with pretty much the same exact color, but judging by how it looked, I'm going to go out and say that this was probably just straight up meth. I mean, by the way it looked, I don't think there was any Molly in this, but I couldn't tell you because I didn't do this shit. You see, once I completed the test, I was immediately pissed. A, because I just got shit on by the vendor and he sent me some meth, and B, because I was out my money and out a good time. Now, at first, I'm kind of in denial here. I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, this must be a mistake. I mean, this vendor had a good reputation. This must be a mistake. So I log on to the site and I hop on and I shoot the guy a message. I'm like, hey, dude, this shit is meth. Like, did you send me the wrong thing or what's the deal here? Because granted, nothing in the package was labeled. Sometimes when I'd order stuff, you would get something that's labeled. Like when I order my tabs of acid through the dark web, usually they'll come in this tiny little Mylar that's labeled, right? Or they'll come in something else that tells you the dosage, or it'll say LSD or something to tell you what is in that container. Not every time, but a lot of the time. This was not labeled. So at this point, I'm still being an idiot. I'm like, well, this must have been a mix-up or something, you know? I mean, this must have been a mistake. So I hit this guy up and I'm like, hey, and luckily I had not finalized my order yet. So, I mean, the money was still up in the air, but I'm like, hey, dude, listen, I tested this shit. This is not Molly. I mean, did you send me the wrong thing or what's the deal? And I remember I went on his profile and I'm looking through his listings and I realized that this guy does not sell meth. So it's not like he maybe just sent me the wrong thing or sent me someone else's order. This guy does not even advertise that he has meth. So after looking at that, I knew pretty quickly that I had just gotten fucked. So obviously, I dispute the transaction because my shit was still not finalized, right? Thank the Lord that it was still not finalized. So I dispute this. However, what I learned very quickly is that darknet market support teams pretty much don't exist. They just give you the dispute option to make you feel comfortable. Nothing ever came of it. I used this market a little while longer. I never got my money back. I don't know what happened to the vendor. I wasn't keeping tabs on him because I didn't want any meth, but I never got my goddamn money back. And pretty shortly after, I kind of started using other markets because I was like, well, this shit's kind of scuffed, dude. I mean, I just got fucked and they won't even give me my money back. Why does the dispute system even exist, you know? So after that, I was like, fuck this shit. We're off. We're using some other markets. And I had to go find a million other sketchy markets to browse through, which most of them probably don't even exist anymore because the average lifespan of a darknet market nowadays is like not even a year. So either way, you know, thanks to testing my shit, me and my friends didn't end up doing meth. I hit up the homies and I had to let them down. I was like, listen, boys, I'm going to be honest. This is not Molly, you know? And I told them this the day of, right? Because I had checked out this Molly and I still thought this was a mix-up. But then the next day they were planning to come over and I was like, listen, guys, this is not Molly, you know, like you can still come over, we can still get lit, but we're not going to be rolling. And they were like, oh, that sucks. But they still came through and we had a plenty good time on the wide assortment of other drugs that I was doing at the time. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you guys might consider to start testing your substances. I know a lot of you probably do, but the reason I made this video is for those of you that don't. Stuff like this that can happen to anybody, right? It can happen from any source. You know, you could get fake shit, and the guy who sold it to you might not even know himself that it's fake. Most of the time, he probably does, but every now and then, you just never know, and it's very important to be safe rather than sorry, especially when it comes to drugs. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you maybe consider getting some drug test kits and testing your stuff. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, gamers.